What if Weezer made a dancehall pop summer smash? Find out on this week's What If, How, When, Why. Hello, my name is Morgan Brown, and for a few months now I've been making a series of music videos which take a popular song and then imagine an alternative universe scenario in which a different set of circumstances or a decision that someone made caused that song to come out completely different from the version that we know. I then take the original lead vocal of that record and record my own backing track to it in a different style using just GarageBand and whatever instruments I have to hand in order to create a real version of this alternative universe fantasy. So this week I decided to take on Island in the Sun by Weezer. On and on and in the sun, we'll be playing and having fun, and it makes me feel so fine, I can't control my brain. Now, I know there's a lot of content already on YouTube regarding Weezer, much of it done by grizzled old Generation Xers like me, so I'm not going to dwell on the history of the band too much, but for a lot of people around my age, Weezer was a really important band. So I guess some of the first music that we've got into would have been grunge. We were listening to Nirvana, Soundgarden, all that kind of stuff, and then after a few years of that, and you're looking for the next thing, Weezer really kind of felt like a natural next step. They still had those kind of weighty, grungy guitars, but then you had these massive pop melodies. I mean, Nirvana definitely had pop melodies too, but they're kind of like Easter eggs that you had to get through a bit of a wall of noise and anger to actually get to, whereas with Weezer, they were very much front and center. It was a proper 1965 Brian Wilson kind of melody that you were going to get up front over this wall of kind of sludgy guitars. So that first album, the Blue Album as we call it, the self-titled record, that was a really important record for a lot of people. And the follow-up, Pinkerton, certainly for me and my friends, a lot of people who got really mega into the first record, was even better. It still had the huge melodies, but it was a lot darker, seemed to have a lot more depth. The lyrics had always been, they were kind of fun, they were a bit quirky, they definitely had a sense of humour, and that's still present on Pinkerton, but there's a new level of kind of really dark introspection there, some of which is quite sort of disturbing in a way, but it's really compelling too. Musically, it was really adventurous, harmonically exciting, there was all kinds of stuff going on in the arrangements, it was really strange. The production, I mean, Rick Ocasek's production on the first album was great, kind of tight, clean production. They self-produce on Pinkerton, and everything gets a bit more noisy, a bit more raw. The drums sound kind of like Steve Albini drums, sort of like you would have heard on In Utero by Nirvana. It was really exciting. Unfortunately, the very things that made the record so exciting for people like me were definitely really off-putting to a lot of the kind of crossover pop fans that they gathered early on with records like Buddy Holly. I mean, the first single off the album was El Scorcho, it's a great record, but it's so weird. And it must have just been so off-putting for anyone who was just looking for a little kind of 3-minute bubblegum kind of pop song that could just drift in one ear and out the other. So that was kind of a commercial failure for them, and basically after that the band went on hiatus for a few years. Rivers went off to study, and we kind of wondered how they were going to come back from that. A few years later, you start to hear rumours of them coming back. There's a new lineup. Matt Sharp, the original bassist, is gone, but this album emerges, the Green Album, so very much harking back to that first record, self-titled again, just a plain picture of the band on the cover. Rick Ocasek's back in the production chair, so it's very much a feeling of a hard reset for the band. But it's a controversial one for fans. I know a lot of fans see that as the point where Weezer completely lost them. It was certainly disappointing on quite a few levels. It seemed like after the risks that they took on Pinkerton failed to pay off so badly, they were now terrified to take any risks whatsoever. So the lyrics any of that challenging stuff that we enjoyed so much on Pinkerton, that's all gone. The words to these songs are very much either so inoffensively bland or just rhyming nonsense for the sake of just having something to rhyme. And the arrangements are simple to the point of being formulaic. Every song is just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. There's a guitar solo that's just the melody of the verse. It just felt a little bit like, okay, we're going to just pick the safest possible formula and stick with that. So a lot of people were really disappointed with that. I know I'm a big fan of Pat Finnerty's What Makes This Song Stink episode, and he talks about him and his cousin Mike eagerly buying this album, getting in the car, putting it in the stereo, and then the album being jettisoned out of the car window before the journey's even finished. They were so disgusted with it. I didn't feel quite that strongly about it, I must admit, although it's a pretty shallow product compared to what they were doing on Pinkerton. There's still, for me, quite a lot to be said for a bunch of those songs. Rivers has not lost his knack for a good melody. The melodies, for the most part, are tremendous still. Some really interesting chord sequences. And Rick Akasek's production it's great, really tight, warm. It's just a great sounding power pop record, even if the songs don't have an awful lot of substance to them. Weirdly, the weakest songs on the album for me are the ones that they picked as the first two singles. The first single was Hash Pipe, which is just a really super generic kind of hard rock plod. Nothing really to stick in the memory or to recommend it at all. And then after that, you get Island in the Sun. Quite why that was a single, I don't know. For me, it's so twee and insubstantial. I get, it's got the word sun in, so people think, oh, it's a nice summery kind of pop song, but it just sounds so non-committal, like the band don't believe in it. I've never heard anyone sing about being on an island in the sun, playing and having fun with less enthusiasm than Rivers Cuomo manages to muster. So the whole thing seems really sort of forced to me. So when I saw, just browsing through lists of isolated vocals on YouTube, that there was an isolated vocal there for Island in the Sun, I thought, okay, this is my chance to do something interesting with this disappointing song. And my initial thought was, I guess for me, Island in the Sun feels like it's kind of the tipping point where things start to tail off for Weezer. I don't feel like the records after that are necessarily all bad. Actually, the next album was pretty decent for the most part. And, everything after that generally has something worth listening to on it, but it is definitely diminishing returns from that point onwards. So if you take Island in the Sun as the tipping point, maybe I could do a version of it where instead of going for this weaker, more commercial sound, they lean really into the Pinkerton sound. So I actually did this, made a whole version that sounded like that, mocked up the Pinkerton drum sound, piled on layers of guitars. Was quite happy with it. And then something in the back of my mind just made me think, should I just have a quick check just in case anyone else has had a similar idea? And lo and behold, there's an entire channel called Everything is Pinkerton, which has done versions of a number of later Weezer songs, including Island in the Sun, in the style of Pinkerton and the Blue Album. And it's great. I'm not sure who it is who does that channel, but they've done a fantastic job. Their version's a little different to mine, but it was such a similar idea. I thought, well, I can't possibly just tread on their toes with this. So it's time to think of a new plan. So my second thought was, okay, so how about instead of Island in the Sun being the point where Weezer start to slowly go downhill, how about if that's the point where they just spectacularly jump the shark and just completely sell out? And I figured, it's a song about playing and having fun in the sun, so maybe in an alternative universe, a record executive picks up on that and decides that this is going to be their breakthrough summer smash that's going to get them back those kind of casual pop listeners. So his suggestion is, okay, how about we turn this into a dancehall pop song, playing up on the kind of Island in the Sun theme. And just to increase the appeal of the song, how about we get a collaborator in? If you're a young person, I know there are some of you out there, you may not remember this, but certainly through a lot of my youth, like the 90s and then into my 20s, into the 2000s, it seemed like every summer there was at least one, often several kind of big breakthrough pop reggae or kind of pop dancehall hits that were just inescapable for the entire summer. Sometimes these were by established reggae artists who just decided they wanted to make a big pop song to have a hit. I'm thinking of like Aswad and Inner Circle definitely had these big summer smashes around that time. Or sometimes it was people who normally work in a different genre who just get a dancehall DJ in to come and toast over one of their songs and add a bit of that kind of dancehall bounce to get a bit of that sort of summery flavour. So, they call up a Sean Paul or a Pato Banton or a Shabba Ranks to just come in and lend some of that flavour to their song. So it seemed to me reasonably plausible that Weezer might have been persuaded to do that. If it sounds unlikely to you, maybe you just know them as a rock band, I urge you to go and check out a song from a few years after this from the Raditude album. It's a song called Can't Stop Partying, which is Weezer attempting to do a club crossover track with a guest appearance by Lil Wayne. And once you've listened to that, I think you'll agree that Weezer doing a dancehall pop song with Shaggy seems a little bit more plausible. I chose Shaggy over any of the other people working in this genre because he was pretty inescapable for a good decade or more, and I think more so than a lot of those other dancehall DJs, definitely seemed the guy most willing to kind of lean into sort of goofy, poppy kind of commercial things. The bit of his vocal that I used in this song was taken from a kind of novelty cover of In the Summertime by Mungo Jerry that he did back in 1995. In my alternative universe scenario, I explained this by saying when he was contacted by whoever it was from Geffen Records, he thought, Weezer are washed up, it's unlikely to be a success, so rather than bothering to do a new verse, he just lifted the one that he'd already used for a previous song, thinking no one would ever hear it, and then was kind of embarrassed when that version becomes a massive hit as well. No disrespect to Shaggy at all, I just figured more so than a Shabba Ranks or Sean Paul, definitely seemed like the guy for a sort of slightly goofy commercial crossover. So it'll probably come as no surprise to you that I've never attempted to make any kind of dancehall or dancehall pop music before. So this was all a bit of an exciting learning experience for me. My first challenge was that I was combining two completely separate vocals from different records that were in different keys and different tempos. So I had to do a bit of maneuvering around on GarageBand to get those two all line up to the new tempo that I wanted for this track. Once I'd actually got everything synced up to the grid nicely, I started with the drums, blended together two different drum machines, and then added some loops that drop in and out depending on which section of the song that we're on. And then for bass, I went for an 808 bass sound. Wanted that really kind of subby sound that you hear on dancehall kind of records, but it's also got the particular one I went for also has a bit of an overdriven top end, which is great because it just gives it that feeling of it being played loud through a sound system speaker that's just distorting, which I think really gives it that a bit of that dancehall flavor. And then mainly, we've just got a lot of synths. There's an arpeggiator on there that just kind of bubbles away throughout. And then a pair of synth acoustic guitars playing another arpeggiated pattern, just panned left and right. And then two actual electric guitars, again in a stereo pair, playing a similar but not identical arpeggio pattern. And then for a bit of extra colour, I went to the BBC SO Discover sample pack from Spitfire Audio, and I used the marimba sound from there to just play a little counter melody that crops up at various points throughout it, and I think that just adds a nice little kind of extra kind of melodic touch there too. So I layered that all up underneath River's vocal, dropped Shaggy in where the guitar solo would happen on the original record, and then I've got him coming in again over the fade out too. And that was kind of it. I think it sounds kind of like what it's meant to. It's super corny. I could sort of imagine it blasting out of a radio 5 times a day in the summer of 2001, and after a couple of days of that, you'd absolutely hate it and never want to hear it again, but you'd still hear it all summer. That was the kind of thing I was going for, and I think I came fairly close. So hopefully you'll enjoy it and it won't drive you too crazy either. So yeah, it was a really fun experiment for me. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you do enjoy this, please like and subscribe, drop us a comment, anything that would help the algorithm along, that would be great. And look out for a new music video coming on Sunday as well. Also, if you've got any suggestions for any songs that you want me to try, any artists you'd like me to look at, or any genres you'd like me to try and take on, please leave a comment. Let me know. I'm always up for new ideas. Can't promise I'll be able to do them, but I'll certainly be happy to have a go. Yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, see you later.